When shopping for car insurance, consider this. Geico has been saving people money on car insurance for over 75 years. So if you're serious about savings, it's simple. Go to geico.com. After 75 years, they know how to save you money.
Hello, podcast fans. Adam Carolla here. I'm leading the fight against patent trolls who are threatening this medium. It's not about me. It's about the podcast you're listening to right now. If I go down, this show could be next. Visit fundanything.com/patent troll for more information on how you can keep podcasting alive. Thank you and mahalo.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Ken Marcus was making a pastrami sandwich when he noticed an odd pattern on a slice of pumpernickel bread, one that spelled out Geico. Ken found himself visiting Geico.com, saving hundreds of dollars on car insurance with great discounts. Later, Ken felt conflicted whether or not he should eat the slice of bread that saved him so much money. But he was so hungry.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Put your name on it. Just put your name on it. That's all I say. Be a man or a woman. Put your name on it.
Well, I'd like to hear about it, potheads.
How the fuck you gonna know how to be great if you don't study greatness? Look at the game change.
Donuts.
If you want a battle, it's either that you will or you won't.
You know, you're not a bad-looking man, Mr. Gauss.
But you are, Blanche. You are in that chair.
There's something wrong with us. Something very, very wrong with us.
Hey, man!
Jimmy, how are your levels?
I think they're good.
Corey, you're good?
My vitals.
How are your vitals?
Remember you used to say that on Emergency? How are your vitals?
How are your vitals?
I think they're okay.
You, Jimmy Dore, a very blue-collar white male comic of 12 children of Chicago, wrote one of the most comprehensive books about government, civics, and educational things that was completely palatable. I think this is the bell cow. This is the book that I think a lot of comics should start writing about politics because I understood everything all of a sudden.
Well, that's the whole point. Well, first of all, thanks for saying all that stuff. But that is the whole point. Like, people like this. They tell me, "Oh, you're so smart." I'm like, I'm not. I'm not smart. I was a C student. I'm just informed. And there's a difference. And, if I can see this stuff coming, that means that the guys in charge see it coming. So it means that the whole system is rigged and we're getting screwed left and right all the time. Right now we're going to get screwed again. They're going to go. We have to go stop ISIS. I don't know if you know, but they're worse than anything we've ever seen, Jay. They're worse than the kamikazes. They're worse than the Al Qaeda. They're worse than Saddam Hussein. They're worse than the Nazis. They're the worst thing in the world ever. They're the biggest boogeyman. Guess what? I bet we have to spend billions of dollars to go fight them.
Maybe trillions, mostly because they're named after a girl cartoon character.
Yes. Is that why they refer to? So some people say ISIS, which is the cartoon character.
Yeah.
And I see Brock says ISIL.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Maybe that's plural.
I don't know.
Ovum.
Yeah, I don't know.
ISIL.
Yeah, ISIL, maybe, yeah.
This is what I learned from your book, and everybody listening, I really, really, really recommend this book. I loved this book, Jim.
So that's really nice of you to say. It's very flattering.
And
I try to keep it funny.
It is very funny, and it's amazing you kept it as funny as it is, because it's sort of a nihilistic view of what I took from the book is we are fucked. Completely.
Well, there is a chapter at the end that has hope for the country.
It is like the anti-Revelations.
Yes.
Like if you read the Bible at the end, the seas are boiling. Your book has a nicer outcome. What I was impressed with was, I'm assuming, obviously, because you grew up in Chicago, 12 kids, hardworking parents, very blue collar, huge Democrat, I would assume, growing up. Family, you couldn't get away from it.
My dad was a Reagan Democrat. He was one of those. So that's what really kind of got me interested in politics. Was I took a class in high school called Current Events, and our textbook was Time Magazine. And I was reading Time Magazine, and then I was like, hey, this guy Reagan is fucking the working man, right? He's taxing unemployment benefits, and he's putting the tax burden back on the workers, taking it away from corporations and the wealthy. And I could just see that. And then he's running up huge debts and all that stuff. And my dad didn't see any of this. And I would be like, Dad, all you have to do is pick up Time magazine. It's not a fucking secret. You know, I know they're not telling it to you on the news, on TV. I don't know why. I think I know why. But all you have to do is be a little bit more informed, and you can see what's happening. And that's the way they like to keep it. People are way too busy to get informed. And if you do have time, they have you distracted with your iPhones and your iPads and your computers and the internet and the porn and everything. So right now they show a beheading. Hey, we got to spend billions more dollars.
You, what I thought was really neat about the book, Your Country's Just Not That Into You by Jimmy Dore, and I'm just keep saying it because I really want you guys to buy it, was you were really fair. Like, you hammered the right, you hammered the left, you hammered the libertarians, you hammered people right down the middle. And what interested me just now, what you said about reading Time magazine and informing your father that he could be informed had he read Time magazine, you make it very clear to the reader no one is being informed ever. Like, when you watch the news, there is no information being exchanged.
Right.
Brian Williams is a good example of a guy that reads a teleprompter for a living. And then where have the newsmen, two questions. Where have the newsmen gone? And then explain to the listener how and why they're not really getting any real information.
Okay, so, what happened was, it used to be journalism is pretty important to a democracy, especially our democracy. In fact, journalism, it was considered so important to the founding fathers. It was one of the three professions that are mentioned in the Constitution, right? So the Fourth Estate has a big job to keep the corporations and the government honest. It keeps the corporations from buying.
What is the Fourth Estate?
Fourth Estate means the press, right? So a free press, journalists, right? So we have First Amendment. They don't have that. They don't have freedom of speech in other countries, even Canada, right? People don't realize that. So we have that in America, and it's really important. So it used to be guys like Walter Cronkite would keep an eye on the fat cats and the government and make sure they didn't get too cozy, and when they would, they'd expose them. Well, the fat cats got smart, and they decided, why don't I just buy the watchdog? And that's exactly what happened. So now the corporations own the watchdog, and so they own the government and they own the watchdog. So that's why we have the biggest income disparity that we've had since the Gilded Age. That's why we've had record corporate profits and still the biggest income disparity since the Gilded Age, and the decimation of the middle class. So what happens now is that they go, like, guys, I like to take on Brian Williams in the book, and the reason why I do is because he's the most popular newsman in the country, and I like Brian Williams. He seems like a funny guy. I'd like to have him come over to parties at my house. He seems like a really fun guy.
He's a pothead, Brian Williams.
I bet he is.
Yeah. Loves the reefer.
But here's the problem with Brian Williams, right? He mistakes neutrality for objectivity. He was on Jimmy Fallon the other night, and he said, Jimmy, I like to play the news right down the middle. Oh, really, Brian? I didn't know there were two sides of the truth. What if you were a journalist in England, Brian, where they have three political parties? How would you play it down the middle then? Oh, maybe you just have to report objective facts and frame an issue for me accurately, and then I would know what the fuck was going on. But that's not what they do. They just repeat two talking points. They'll tell you, well, the Democrats said this, the Republicans said this. What's the real answer? I guess we'll never know. I just reported both sides, and I'm being neutral. Yes, that's being neutral. That's not being objective. So here's the difference. You can look at something like climate change, and you can be objective about it and say, hey, this is a real thing. This is happening. This is an objective fact. This isn't my opinion. This is science. But they don't report it that way. They'll have on a scientist, and then they'll have on a senator from Tennessee. And they'll go, oh, a senator says there isn't global warming. The scientist says it is. I guess we'll never know. But it's good to have the debate. There is no fucking debate about climate change. That debate has taken place between climate scientists, and it is settled. There is no debate. This is like the debate that was, were cigarettes bad? Were they causing cancer because tobacco companies were spending billions of dollars to lobby the other way? It's the same thing that's happening, but the news guy reports it, both sides, like as if he's being objective, and he's not. You can be objective and say global warming is really a thing. So we're left with Brian Williams giving us bullshit like that, and he doesn't play it down the middle. He's always going to give you the corporate point of view, and I'll give you the perfect example. The biggest story of the last decade the biggest story had to be the Iraq War. Now, night after night, Brian Williams bring on generals, retired generals, that were going to give us a straight dope about what was happening in the Iraq War. Well, it turns out those generals are being paid by defense contractors, which is pretty important because that means they're acting, the things they're saying are going to reward the defense contractors with money, and so they're being pro-war. Brian Williams never revealed that. When it did get revealed, the person who wrote that story for the New York Times won a Pulitzer Prize. Brian Williams never mentioned it on its news show. So the biggest story of the last decade, the number one newsman in America totally fucking missed it and didn't mention it. So what is he doing? And my question, now, during the Iraq War, NBC was owned by General Electric, which is a defense contractor. So my question to Brian Williams is, how many checks do you take during a war from a defense contractor before you stop calling yourself a journalist?
Yeah. First of all, calm down.
I get worked up about this stuff.
I love it. And the book is very funny, and you are very passionate. And I do want people to know that as passionate as you are, it's equally that much funny. Like, there are many, 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 many funny slants and angles and takes on this. But what I want to ask you about Brian Williams, taking it down the middle, that was like a revelation to me when I read this book. It never dawned on me, like, no, there are two sides to the news. There are such simple things in this book that never dawned on me. Like, hey, let's have a debate about this subject. Well, this subject, if it's like, as you said, the news, like the Iraq War, we're going to war. What's the death toll? Who's winning? Who won that battle? It's not a debate. There's news, north, east, west, south. That's what is actually happening. And it wasn't until I read Jimmy Dore's book, Your Country's Just Not That Into You, that I realized, holy shit, like, I'm a fucking sheep. I had the wool pulled over my eyes, and it never dawned on me that there are these, like, panels. As you put in the book, there's always a fucking panel. There's always a woman on the end, there's always a black guy, there's always a Republican, there's always a Democrat, and there's 4 different points of view from 4 different demographics. It's the news. How could there be a panel about what's actually happening? And the only thing more maddening than that to me, just to share something that I loathe, is when they go on CNN, your tweets next. No, I don't want to hear a guy from fucking Fontana's idea about ISIS. I want you to tell me what they're doing and who they're beheading. More people have seen the Ray Rice knocking out his wife video than have ever seen an ISIS video.
Right.
And that's news. So anyway, congratulations on enlightening me many times over.
Well, again, I'm very flattered, but the way I put it about the way Brian Williams and other news people report the news is you couldn't report sports that way. You couldn't say, hey, the Chicago Cubs played the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Cubs said they won 4-3. The Pirates said they won 5-4. Who really won? I guess we'll never know, but I reported both sides. You could never do that in
Your
sports.
phone call's next.
You could never do that. With sports, which isn't important, but the things that are important, that is how it gets reported. So that's what's wrong.
Was Cronkite, I mean, you brought him up, but was he objective? Would Cronkite actually call out his bosses? Would Cronkite
He
and those
said that
Edward R. Murrow guys, would they actually say, this stinks and I don't like it?
Well, it's, people always point to Walter Cronkite as being the heyday of news journalism. Like, that was the nadir.
The president has been shot.
The two things...
Or he hasn't.
The two... I guess we'll never know. I guess we'll... Harvey Oswald said he didn't do it.
Governor Connolly said everybody's all right.
So what? So the thing is that you can't report the news that way, and that's what's wrong with our economy. That's what's wrong with our country. That's what's wrong with our foreign policy.
We got to go in pieces here because it's a lot of information, and it's incredibly entertaining to me. Ergo, it's entertaining to my listeners.
Okay.
How did you transfer from the news not being objective to that's what's wrong with the economy? Where did that connection go in your head?
Well, because they don't tell you. So, for instance, if I see one more billionaire Wall Street banker come on TV and tell me the problem with the economy is people on Social Security, I'm going to fucking shoot somebody. So that's what I'm talking about. And that's how they report it.
Someone tonight.
I was watching 60 Minutes, and this is in the book, and they decided to find out what was wrong with the deficit. And who did they ask? They asked the CEO of Honeywell and Lloyd Blankfein, the head of Goldman Sachs. What's wrong with our deficit? Did you think they thought it was too many wars? And did you think they thought it was too many bank bailouts? No. They thought what was wrong with the deficit was too much Social Security and Medicare.
Yeah.
And so
poor people really are ruining the country.
It's the people with no money and no power. And that's what I say in the book. People, it's amazing that in the middle, and here's another letdown from the mainstream news media, in the middle of the biggest ass reaming we've ever gotten from the military-industrial complex and Wall Street, people still have time to be angry at poor people and immigrants. It's unbelievable, right? Poor people, my brother, right, he thinks everybody on welfare is a big scammer. Right? He's like, oh, those people on welfare, they're all scamming. Oh, yeah, Danny, they've rigged the system so now they're the poorest people in the entire fucking state.
With the most jobs.
Oh, those fat cats at the bottom.
Three jobs.
Yeah, they got to work.
Wage each.
Right, exactly.
Poorest people work the hardest.
And so I say in the book, if you find yourself being angry at someone lower on the economic ladder than you, pretty good chance you're being manipulated by someone higher on the economic ladder, right, than you. And I'll give you another example. Corporations are sitting on $5 trillion right now. They're not investing it. They're making record profits, okay? And corporations say that they're not investing in our economy because they don't have confidence. And I say if $5 trillion doesn't give you confidence, I'd try fucking dance lessons. Right, but Brian Williams won't report it that way because he works for one of those giant corporations who doesn't pay taxes. Well, right now General Electric has divested itself of NBC completely, so now it's all Comcast. But up until spring of 2013, it was still owned by General Electric. So they have, but during the important time during the Iraq War, it was owned by General Electric.
There are people, Jimmy Dore, listening to this podcast that are going to say, well, he's a typical Hollywood liberal douchebag.
Right.
He obviously doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Right. Lefty. How do you justify? Because there is that great expression, one of my favorites, all news is biased. How do I, if I'm a Republican and I live in Jacksonville, Florida, I think you're fucking crazy.
Yes, the news media is liberal, and it's being brought to you by Walmart, multinational corporations, defense contractors, and oil giants. They're paying for the liberal news media to undermine their corporations. Does that make sense?
You have a great chapter on that in the book, and it is, I hear it all the time, and I think anybody listening to the podcast hears this all the time, the liberal media. The liberal media.
Yes.
You hear it constantly over and over and over.
Oh, yeah.
And I have always said to my friends and to people that I talk to about and friends of mine that are very far on the right, I always go, well, the only time I hear that is when I'm listening to either Hannity on my drive home or when I'm watching Fox News. I'm always seeing, I don't know where the liberal media is.
They'll say
supposedly it's the New York Times.
It's supposedly
like the big Jewish with horns and tails newspaper.
New York Times, which by the way was on board for the Iraq War, printed false stories handed directly to Dick Cheney to their front page. That's how we got into the Iraq War. That's the big liberal newspaper. The New York Times still wouldn't call torture until about 2 seconds ago because the government didn't want them to.
So you're saying, Jimmy Dore, that it's not a liberal media. How do you explain to...
It's not a liberal... Well, because it's owned by...
Hold on. How do you explain to a proud Republican that has been told this is the liberal media and really thinks it's a liberal media, how do you explain slowly and calmly how it's in fact not a liberal media? Because it's a really neat point you make.
Okay, so there's a couple of ways I could explain that. The one is to go, well, let's look at the most liberal media that people think is liberal is MSNBC. Now, during the run-up to the Iraq War, Phil Donahue had the #1 show on MSNBC. He was anti-Iraq war. They fired him. What does that tell you? That was MSNBC. They fired him because Phil Donahue had low ratings, although he was the highest rated show on the network at the time. They also got rid of Jesse Ventura and anybody else who was going to go against the corporate line. So they quieted them. They bought their contracts out. They weren't allowed to talk. But who did they promote?
Jews don't run the media. And I'm being serious.
Well, Phil Griffin runs MSNBC. He's Irish.
Okay.
And so Rupert Murdoch is not Jewish? Rupert Murdoch, as far as I know, is Australian.
And explain to the list. Well, I don't know if Australia. I'm pretty sure you can be a Jew from Australia.
You can be, I think. So the media...
Special process. It's a vetting process, though.
So in 1980, Jay, 50 corporations owned all the media in the United States. And they were giant companies. 50 giant companies owned all the media in the United States. Well, now 6 companies own all the same media and more. You go, wait a minute, I got 1,000 channels on my cable. I got 1,000 channels on my internet. No, it's all the same 6 companies. Rupert Murdoch is one of those guys. And you want to know what he owns? Here, can I just read it to you from the book because it's a nice list. He owns
one man.
The one man owns the Wall Street Journal, News Corp, 20th Century Fox, DirecTV, Sky TV, Fox News, the New York Post, the Chicago Sun-Times, the Village Voice. How the fuck did that happen? The Boston Herald, London Sunday Times, most of the TV in Europe, Asia, and Australia. And if you didn't get the point, I could also mention TV Guide, The Sun, 5 more British national newspapers, most of England's satellite TV. And oh yeah, he also bought the Dow Jones, which I didn't even know you could do that.
The Dow. First of all, you named 28 media outlets from one man.
Okay.
I counted.
All right.
You just said 28. So Rupert Murdoch owns 28 ways for us to get our news. And some, by the way, incredibly left, Village Voice, is about as...
Yes.
I think it's free.
You're right. I think you're right.
So, first of all, bravo for picking up a free newspaper. It's a great business decision. Fucking Australian kook. I really want to make some money. I'll get the Dow Jones and the recycler.
Well, he's not a.
How do you buy the Dow Jones?
Well, that's what I say. You can buy. I just picture him sitting in his office, sitting in a dolphin-lined chair, stroking a Persian cat, wearing a diamond-studded necklace, and then he pushes a button that burns a barrel of oil just for kicks. So he's in his office and he goes, "I want to buy the Dow Jones." I don't think you can do that, sir. You could do that. I want to buy all the businesses. And what do you want to buy next? How about the alphabet? What else can this guy buy? So how does that affect me? People say, well, Jimmy,
do you want all the letters of the alphabet, Mr. Murdoch?
You can skip Q. It'll be quicker that way. Oh, fuck it. I do need Q.
Yeah.
So that's the joke I tell on stage. So how does that affect people? Well, let's say your government wanted to, and the military-industrial complex wanted to invade another country that was oil-rich, right? Well, first they would have to scare the shit out of you, so they'd have to create a boogeyman. Well, we got it. We had Al-Qaeda. Now we got ISIS.
As George Carlin would say, spooky language.
Oh,
spooky language.
Spooky language, right?
So that's now, what they do first. They scare you.
They first scare you, get you scared. Remember, they remember how we were all scared of the Al-Qaeda?
Yes, but let's go in steps here. If Rupert Murdoch wants to make a huge profit owning 28 different outlets of news media, it doesn't behoove him particularly to go to war. It behooves Rupert Murdoch for you to buy newspapers and satellite television. So what good does it do him for me to have
let's say
about ISIS
if the 6 guys who own the media want a war, guess what? We're going to get a war.
Why would they want a war, Jimmy?
That's a good question. Rupert Murdoch, does he own a defense contracting company? I don't think so, but I know he's right-wing. I know he owns Fox News. I know that that's the way his politics run. He's quoted as they ask him, did your news media outlets affect the Iraq war? He said, I don't think so, but I try. So of course, that's his agenda. His agenda is he wanted to go to war. Why he did, that's a great question. All I know is he did, and we went. And who did they get to sell that? So they got to concoct a story. So they get a guy who owns all the media in Australia, England, and the United States to go help sell the war. Son of a bitch. Those are the 3 countries that went into Iraq with us.
Yeah.
And then you're sitting at home, you go, well, how does that still affect me? Well, you're sitting at home, your house is underwater, your kid's going to a shitty school because the country's broken, we're firing teachers, cops, and firemen, the bridges have potholes and the streets are screwed up, and you're sitting at home and your government says they don't have any money to help you because there's $3 trillion sitting in a hole called Iraq, and that's how it affects you.
Okay. Now, again, I'm going to go back to the proud Republican, sitting in Northern...
I like the devil's advocate here.
Florida, well, there's a lot of people. And I will say, I would not legitimize either party with my affiliation. I think anybody that thinks one party is correct is certifiably insane. There's 12 houses of the zodiac, and how often is your horoscope correct? That's 12. So if you're going to 2-party system, I think you're kind of funneling your brain down to a very tiny stem. There's people listening to this that think you're an absolute batshit crazy person.
Yes, no doubt about it. Because reality is stranger than fiction, and what I'm giving them is stranger than a made-up story.
Sean Hannity, where Corey is sitting, our engineer today, he would have a counterpoint to every single thing you're saying.
And most of them would already have been debunked in the media years ago.
But it wouldn't stop.
I was debating a guy just yesterday. I was promoting this book, and the guy debated me about climate change. And he gave the example of, it's snowing in Montana already, and you're saying there's climate change? It's snowing in September in 3 states or something like that. And I was like, so you don't know the difference between weather and climate change, and you want to come on a radio show and argue the point. All you're doing is revealing that you're anti-intellectual, anti-science, and you don't know what you're talking about.
Why doesn't the government listen to scientists? What you would think if people are elected officials, and I'm not playing devil's advocate, I'm being serious.
Yes.
And again, the book is Your Country is Just Not That Into You, and it is very funny. We're having a serious conversation. We're having a few laughs along the way, but I want you to buy this book. Well, you know what? While we're at it, buy it. Use the Amazon banner at jmohr.com. You can buy this book. You can buy pretty much anything you want, but I really love this book. I tweeted it. It was a lot of retweets. I was really impressed. People dig it. If you're going to go to Amazon, don't go to Amazon.com like some a-hole. Go to jmohr.com, click the Amazon banner. That'll take you there. I get a kickback. It puts my kids through college. Like our friend Grace DeVito. Yeah, right now Grace DeVito's on a train going, get the fuck out of here. Just said, Grace DeVito says, Dear JJ, found out about your podcast from your appearance on Adam Carolla's show, and I've been loving you since. I even listened to old shows while I was competing in a still life painting competition, laughing out loud on many occasions to the other painters' consternation. You and John DiMaggio had me in stitches. I recently clicked through your Amazon banner to purchase a birthday gift for my sweet husband of 27 years. He is a big Patrick O'Brien fan, so I bought Post Commander in CD format so we can listen while driving on his many adventures. Thank you for the laughs, Grace DeVito. Grace DeVito, thank you for using the Amazon banner at jmohr.com, and thanks for helping put my kids through college. Now, Jimmy Dore, this book that people are going to buy using my Amazon banner at jmohr.com, Your Country is Just Not That Into You. If scientists are saying that, first of all, it was global warming, and it got renamed
to climate change.
It's not really global warming. Right. The fact that it's snowing, as that person just said to you on that radio show yesterday, already in September, that is sort of, to me, like I'm a nudnik. I know nothing.
Right.
But the fact that it's snowing the first week of September, I go, that's strange. That leans towards the scientists, and the scientists' job are science. It's the house thing, don't worry. So why are government people, why is there a pushback to scientists? What good does it do anybody?
Well, the oil companies obviously don't want science to win the day. They're like tobacco companies. They want to pretend that the science isn't in yet. We're not sure.
But how does the oil company lose if we all agree that climate change is real and do something about it? Is because we no longer use oil?
Yeah, man. That would be, we turn to solar. That would be the reason.
Okay.
So that's all. I mean, it's happening, and what I like to say is, let me just make 2 points. The reason why I called...
Make as many as you want, brother.
The reason why I called the book Your Country is Just Not That Into You is because, like I say in the book, I grew up in a family of 12 kids, and you learn a lot about life growing up in a big family, and I think the biggest thing I learned is that I'm easily replaced, all right? Like, I knew if I died... I knew if I died, it wasn't going to put a big dent in their plans, right? I can't imagine my mom sitting around, oh no, Jimmy's dead. What am I going to do now with just the 11 of you?
Oh my God.
How do you fill the empty 1/12 of your heart, right? Okay, so all you have to do is get left at the camper.
Your mom's heart is the zodiac chart.
Yeah. So I'm pretty good. I have a good antenna when people aren't that into me. And that's why I named the country that, because as George Carlin say, he calls it the owner class. Like, people think the people who run the country is the government, congressmen, senators. They're not. What George Carlin referred to as the owner class, the people who own those people, are not that into you. And they give us a pretend choice in candidates, Democrats and Republicans. What do you mean pretend, Jimmy? Well, last election was really important because it was Barack Obama against Mitt Romney. If Mitt Romney would have won, we would have got Romney Care. But Barack Obama won, so we got Romney Care. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. And people are like, oh, and then people go, well, why are the Republicans acting so crazy? Why are they talking about his long-form birth certificate? Why are they keep bringing up Benghazi? Why do they keep doing all this crazy stuff? And it's because what happened was, starting with Bill Clinton, is that Democrats became Republicans. And so the Republicans still have to oppose them, and they go farther right and farther right and farther right. Barack Obama wants to cut Medicare. Barack Obama wants to cut Social Security. Those are the things Democrats are supposed to stand up for because they're programs that actually work. Social Security is the most successful social program in the history of social programs. Never missed a check. It's still in the black. It's in the black until 2037. So what I'm saying is that's what happened, right? The Democrats became Republicans. Republicans had nowhere to go. And Barack Obama is a warmonger, right? So, and he got their Nobel Prize. First day on the job, here's your Nobel Prize. But I didn't do anything. Shut up and take it. He takes the Nobel Prize. He immediately started bombing Libya. He put a hit on Osama bin Laden. And then he ramped up the war in Afghanistan with a surge. And that's the thing about those peace prizes, Jay. Nobody ever tries to win a second one. And so now,
that's, you know what? I've never thought of that before. There's no like a double Heisman. Like
he immediately ramped up. No, he immediately ramped up the war in Afghanistan.
Never a back-to-back. Like, wow, for the third year in a row.
And there's no three-peats on those peace prizes. It doesn't
Pat Riley would get a kickback.
He would get some.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm talking about, right? So he is. They want to criticize
Bill
his
Mohr
bacon.
had a great way to put it, I think, too, and that is the Republicans go so far to the right. This is what I heard Bill Mohr say.
Okay.
The Republicans go like 5 steps to the right. The Democrats, just to keep the conversation going, take like a step to the right. The Republicans go 5 more steps. And then before you know it, the Democrats are where eventually, over 25 years, where the Republicans used to stand is essentially what you're saying as well.
Yeah, Barack Obama is he's like a reasonable Republican from 1996. He's like Bob Dole from 1996.
With 2 arms.
Yes.
He can masturbate.
Yeah.
Yes. And the thing with you brought up Carlin. I love that you love Carlin as much as I do.
He said all this stuff.
The country's owned by the
owner class, and they don't give a fuck about you.
The middle class do the most work for the least amount of money, and the lower class is there just to scare the shit out of the middle class.
Yes.
Keep them showing up at all those jobs. He says jobs like it's ass rape.
Yes.
Jobs.
Yes. So these are the things that I talk about in the book.
How it seems so dire.
Don't you think it's funny that people get angry at poor people and immigrants? And they're like, here's the thing, like my brother watches a lot of Fox News, listens to a lot of Rush Limbaugh, and he's one of those guys who's angry at poor people. He goes, you know what's wrong with our economy, Jimmy? Too many poor people bought houses they couldn't afford. I'm like, yeah, Danny, that's what happened. A bunch of people with no money and no power somehow wrestled the economy away from Wall Street and then crashed the motherfucker. Oh, if there was only a way billionaires could insulate themselves from the penniless. Oh, there's got to be a way, right, Jay? If that's really what happened to our economy, I say we take all our poor people, put them on a big ship, send them to China, tell them to start buying houses, and that's where the joke ends because that's fucking ridiculous.
Why? Do you consider yourself a Democrat? Because this all seems wildly left. I mean, you would fit right in with, Alan Colmes or somebody.
I'm Ralph Nader.
You're Ralph Nader.
I'm Ralph Nader.
So you can fuck up an election too?
I would love to. I would love to make it so Hillary Clinton doesn't become president because she is just she's just going to continue this slide towards a corporate fascist state.
So you're not a Democrat?
No, not at all.
And again, me being the Republican from Florida that I am.
No, I mean, I'm certainly a progressive. I'm certainly whatever Ralph Nader is. I'm for the little guy. I always like to punch upward. I can see what's happening, and they own the media. So that's why people who are blue collar, that's what they talk about voting against their own interests because they're tricked by the media. And they think the media is liberal. The media owned by multinational corporations, oil giants. And are you kidding me? That the media is liberal? So all you have to do is look at them and all they're going to do is, again, they fired Phil Donahue when he was against the war from the liberal MSNBC. They're going to give you as much liberal claptrap at MSNBC as a defense contractor and an oil giant can stomach. Right? And that's, as soon as Rachel Maddow says something that cuts into their bottom line, she's gone.
I want to ask you about the war. By the way, I'm not from Florida. I'm not a Republican. I'm from New Jersey. And
yes.
I think both parties are fucking batshit crazy. And I vote.
Well, they're both owned by the same people, Jay, and that's the problem.
As Carlin said, I have a brain, and I like to use it. And as soon as somebody comes along and says something that makes that much sense, I'll run to the fucking polls. I always said, Jimmy Dore, I think no one should vote. If you're going to spend $400 million on a campaign and only 100,000 people turn out and you barely squeak out a victory, I fucked you. I won as a citizen. Instead, they're raising all this money, and it's like more people voted than ever. Why? Nothing ever changes.
Because you know why? Because now corporations are people. And corporations who need corporations are the luckiest corporations in the world.
That's a Barbra Streisand tune, isn't it?
That's a twist.
When you're talking about the war and the oil companies really kind of steering the right and the push against climate change, the whole thing about going to war for oil, we've done it 4 times-ish. The first Iraq war, then Iraq and Afghanistan, and then the surge. Let's just chalk it up to 3 times.
Okay.
Fair enough?
Sure.
Then why is it still $5 a fucking gallon on Pacific Coast Highway? If we've gone in there, Jimmy Dore, if we've gone to the Middle East and we've gone to war for oil, as you said earlier, why is it still so fucking expensive? Why isn't it $1 a gallon?
It's still not as expensive as it should be. It should be more expensive than it is. It's kind of artificial.
It's less expensive than orange juice.
It's less expensive than in Europe, too, and other places. So,
they don't shower in Europe. I don't really go by their gauge of right and wrong. They fucking smell and they cheat on their wives.
So,
anyway, why is gas still so expensive? Why don't we just, if we're going, hold on real quick.
How could they cheat on their wife if they smell so bad? That's what I don't get. Like, who?
It's just that funk.
I know. I've been on a bus. I was on a bus one time in Honolulu with a French guy.
My question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, you're not avoiding my question.
No.
You really just, go ahead.
No, I was on
I'll remember it. Go ahead.
And he was just standing there, and I was like, fuck. And he started talking, he was French, and he just stunned. I was like, God damn it, you're a stereotype.
Yeah, they really smell.
And he told in the bar, and it's like you could see, no, it couldn't have been a bus. It must have been like a tram or something I was on.
A jitney.
Why would I take a bus?
Maybe it was a jitney.
I wouldn't go to Hawaii. I would take a bus in L.A. I'm not going to take
I took a bus to Hawaii. That was the best acid trip ever. I was in upstate New York. Me and my buddy got on the 6 bus. We went to Hawaii. I was at the Salvador Dali drawings, not his painting. It was an exhibit of his drawings.
I spent all day on the fucking stairs at that.
And I was in the museum, and it was filled with French people. I like that. Nice stairs. Couldn't keep track of time. And everybody really fucking hummed. Like, they smelled bad. It was an amazing stereotype.
Everybody was humming.
It is astounding.
That's a way to put it. They were humming.
Where's George Carlin, since we're at his altar? Like an anchovies cunt. Why... This is what I ask my friends that are very Republican. If we go into Iraq and if we go into Afghanistan and we see oil fields, why don't we just shut off 1 square mile of oil, put Halliburton walls up around it, and then have I'm being serious, have a lottery system. What I just said, by the way, is completely illegal, but so is a lot of the things.
So is the Iraq War.
So is the fact that the government can watch you jerking off through your laptop. Why not rope off like 10 oil fields? It's like a dot on the map, right? Put up giant Halliburton walls. I'm being completely serious.
I'm loving
this. Have a random wheel, spin it, and it's like tick, 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 Rochester, New York. And then just that oil just goes just for a month. And every month. I mean, why don't we do that? If we're going in there and we're going to lose 3,000 fucking Marines, they're going to die over some bullshit for a guy that wasn't involved in the Twin Towers. Why don't we still take the fucking oil home with you? World War II, we brought back pizza in the name Meredith. The least we can do is fucking bring back barrel. Why aren't we bringing oil back, Jimmy Dore? You have all the answers. Answer me.
I don't have all
Jimmy,
the
we're out of time.
Okay.
This is the Mohr stories. The book is your country is just not into you. Why don't we? Why is oil still so expensive?
Can I also say this? People don't realize how ISIS got started.
By the way, it's the 3rd time you've ducked this question.
Oh, why is oil still expensive?
If we go to war for oil, that is the...
I guess it would be more expensive if we didn't?
That's the liberal cry, is no blood for oil, no war for oil. I'm not a liberal. I'm not a conservative. I'm a human being that goes, if there's blood for oil, why does it cost me $80 to fill my fucking truck?
It's not about us getting a price break at the pump. It's about the oil companies gaining the oil. So when they went into Iraq, they split it up. It's now split up between BP, Shell. So it's no longer the Iraqi people's oil anymore. It's now a corporation's oil. So mission accomplished.
Don't you think the 309 million Americans would still be pro-war if I'm being completely serious.
If the gas was 50 cents a gallon?
If it was $1.90 a gallon, it'd be like, keep sending the Marines over there. This shit's working out. I can build a deck on the back of my house, and I just bought a boat.
Yes.
Just because of the money I'm saving. I don't have to go get a fucking faggoty Prius. I can actually get a truck and enjoy my carbon footprint for once. Like, now all of a sudden I gotta redo my life. I want to drive a truck. I have children.
I I want to drive a fire truck.
My father-in-law always goes, I want to drive a fire, that'd be the best. My father-in-law always goes, I want to leave the biggest carbon footprint possible. And then I piggyback that and I said, you know what, I'm kind of with you, Dad. When I die, I want the earth to go, oof. God damn.
Well, you know, as a comedian on the road, it always seems like I'm in some kind of contest to see how much electricity I could waste. You know what I mean?
Just leave the air.
Everything's on and everything.
Hair dryer going. You're on stage. Back at the DoubleTrue, there's a hair dryer.
Got the hot water going to see if I can get some humidity in the room just because I don't want my skin to dry. But I got to keep the air conditioner cranked because I don't want it hot, you know.
How... It must be difficult to go on stage to a lot of places. What you're saying must be wildly unpopular in a lot of places.
No, I say it with jokes, so it works. I start out with the Romney line, you know, and I talk about gay marriage. I get them into it, and then I talk about stuff like the estate tax, or my brother. I make it personal, right? So I'm not talking about, you know, the news or the editorial page. I'm talking about stories from my family, like my brother again. Who, swear to God, he makes about $50,000 a year. This is talking about how the news media...
Shout out?
Yeah, my brother Danny. This is how the news media...
Danny Dore, how are you, huh?
This is how the news...
Danny Dore from Chicago. He's jacked up about it. His brother's on the podcast.
Yes, a lot of people are jacked up. One day, he makes about $50,000 a year, and he worries about the estate tax. I'll explain. So one day I'm at his house out of nowhere. He goes, hey, we got to get rid of that estate tax. I'm like, sure, Danny, what the fuck are you talking about? And he goes, that's if you die and you have millions of dollars. The government just takes half of it. And I was like, that's horrible. Let me know when that becomes a problem. And but until then, maybe you should turn off your AM radio, get invited to your own fucking life, okay? Because I'm pretty sure estates don't have two cars that don't work on the front lawn, all right? So you should be worrying about the T-shirt tax at Walmart, you dickhead, but you're worrying about millionaires' problems.
I'm going to take your brother's side. And the reason I keep playing devil's advocate is because I keep getting more information out of you, and I want to keep...
okay.
I want us to be down the middle, and I want you and I to be objective.
Yes, let's be objective.
Your brother that makes $50,000 a year... let's say he's cobbled together in his life savings let's say his life savings is $50,000 a year.
Okay.
He's married, he's got a couple kids, and then when he dies, he wills that $50,000 to his family, and the government is going to take half of that fucking money. My friend, is taxation without representation, and that's the reason we fought our fucking balls off in the snow against redcoats in the first place. So how the fuck does the government get away with taxing dead people?
No, he's not. My brother's not going to get taxed when he dies. It's millionaires. There's a threshold before the estate tax kicks in.
I had no idea that.
Yeah.
I'm not lying.
You have to have an estate. Right, that's why I say estates don't have two cars.
I thought anybody that dies...
No, you have to...
If I leave somebody $20,000 in my will, because that's all I had, that doesn't get... That gets taxed.
So the way the estate...
Anything over $10,000...
The way the estate tax used to work is... You had to have like a certain... after $1 million or maybe even $5... The way they redid...
Your brother has to die in order for this experiment.
And you have to have millions of dollars, and they used to take just 50% of it. They used to just take it.
How do we kill your brother and figure out...
This is what I'm saying.
Scientist.
But he's also angry at... Here's another example.
No. So I was trying to make a shitty joke.
I'm sorry.
You're telling me that if I have $50,000 life savings and die, and I will it all to, say, my son...
What's the inheritance tax on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the estate tax, because you have to have an estate.
But it's still taxed.
Yeah, I think you get taxed.
I'm dead.
Yeah, but you're not being taxed. The kid...
But they're taxing what I earned and what I already paid 50% fucking tax on. It is the most batshit...
Well...
You want to talk... Hold on. No, I'm going to rant at you.
Yeah. No, the estate tax doesn't affect regular people. It only affects millionaires. So that's why...
Fair enough.
Let's
say I'm a millionaire.
Yeah.
All right? Mm-hmm. I die. Mm-hmm. By the way... For all you people out there to go, the rich need to pay more taxes, and I'm sure Jimmy Dore is one of them. Corporations, certainly. We both are lockstep in that. They need to pay, how about some taxes?
How about some?
How about any? How about half?
How about some?
Like me. There's been times in my life where I've made over $1 million, and I got taxed 50% fucking percent. Mm-hmm. So let's say I kept making that kind of a money, and I keep getting taxed 50%, 50%, 50%, 50%. Then I die, and all that money goes to my sons, and the government taxes them 50% on the money I spent my entire fucking life getting taxed 50%. Yeah. That is the biggest goddamn heist. That's a mafia job.
What is a bigger heist is when millionaires don't have to pay for the infrastructure of America, but working people do, and they get their Medicare and Social Security cut in the middle of a bank bailout and 3 wars to support it, right? So I think it's okay I think it's time we start taxing rich people more. I would love to pay more taxes. I'd love to be richer. You know, to me, I hear what you're saying.
But I pay half.
I understand.
Not anymore because I work in radio.
But I used to.
But there was a time where half.
But I remember Dennis Miller used to complain. He complains about taxes. I'm a big fan of Dennis Miller's comedy.
Chip.
And not a little lately, but he was a big influence on me. He's a great comic.
This guy made McGovern look like William the Conqueror. All right? Get 3 more electoral votes than I got. I didn't fucking run. Sorry. He's the best. One of my favorite albums of all time.
No, he's great. And but he would, I would see him come on TV and complain about his taxes, and I would say, is there anything more kind of stomach turning than hearing millionaires complain about taxes in the middle of a fucking depression? I don't think there is.
But I got to tell you, it's. I don't think.
I know I'm going to lose this argument with you.
No, because it's a fair argument. I don't think it's an unfair complaint.
No, I understand the logic of it.
You're taking half of my money.
Right.
I'm being penalized for being exceptional at my job.
Why don't you get one of those Mitt Romney accountants? Because he paid less taxes than you did, less taxes than me, and that guy's making all the money.
Clayton Kershaw, pitcher for the Dodgers, is going to make about $300 million in his lifetime. The government's going to take half his money. You know what? Guy can throw 98 miles an hour, and he's got a 12-6 fucking curveball. He's being penalized for being so good at his job. This isn't like a scumbag millionaire. If you want to talk about like athletes, for example, like you take some kid out of the ghetto, he's got a jump shot, he never misses, he's making $10 million a year, he comes off the bench for the Miami Heat, there's no state tax in Florida, another state, fuck it, the New York Knicks, they take half of that.
Why is it bad?
Why are the rich being penalized? And look, and I need...
When are the rich going to have their day?
Real quick. No. I need to quantify this by saying emphatically, the middle class are paying far too much taxes. I'm saying the level of rich that I think you and I are kind of like improv rich. Let's say theater rich. Okay? Maybe get off my fucking back a little bit. Our backs. Maybe if I'm playing the Beacon Theater, get off Black Crowes band type. And you go after the McCartneys and the Rolling Stones and the Apples. You go after the Microsofts.
Right.
Take them to the fucking cleaners. And why won't a president, once he gets a second term, because the first term, every decision is just to get a second term.
Yes.
You've read enough presidential biographies to know that that's all it is. And by the way, everybody listening, the only thing you do in your first term is ensure that second term, and then you can make a little bit of noise, unless you get fucking killed. That's really the key to enjoying your benefits, Shell.
Yeah. But he's already almost a lame duck. Barack Obama.
Almost.
So,
almost.
I mean, he is. I mean, once he lost the House, it was over. So that's the kind of stuff I don't talk about in my act.
But why doesn't one president, after he gets a second term, just take the fucking hammer to these corporations? What are they going to do?
People ask me about Barack Obama like that. Like, why does he always start his negotiations from the middle of the Republicans' position? Why isn't? And I was just like, that's just how Barack Obama's years work. He's one of them, right? He is an insider. He was, what I would tell people about Barack Obama is you don't get to be the first black editor of the Harvard Law Review by being a black guy who pisses people off. Right? You get that job by being a black guy who learns how to make white guys who are rich comfortable with a black guy. And that's his whole MO. His whole thing is compromise. His whole life has been that. Plus, he is one of those guys. He's in bed with Wall Street, just like George Bush was, just like Bill Clinton was. And we need the banks are going to fail again. They're bigger now than they were before they failed.
But why can't... It's impossible to me, Jimmy Dore, that a president of the United States doesn't realize... You know what? I could fix the economy just by taking these 6 giant corporations and making them pay.
Teddy Roosevelt did it. He broke them up. Teddy Roosevelt. So it takes, my theory is it's going to take a rich guy. You got to come from them. Like FDR, Teddy Roosevelt. FDR said government by organized money is just as dangerous as government by organized mob. And he said the bankers, never before has organized money been more organized against one candidate ever before in history. He meant himself. And he said, they hate me and I welcome their hate, meaning Wall Street. Could you imagine Barack Obama saying that about Lloyd Blankfein or Jamie Dimon? And they hate me because of what I'm doing, and I welcome their hate. No, he's like, whatever you guys want. They're doing quantitative easing right now.
Remember what Reggie Jackson said, fans don't boo nobodies. And those bankers were booing the shit out of FDR. We need commercials. Hang in there.
Can I give you a joke before we go to the commercial?
Yeah, because I want to talk to you about Occupy Wall Street. I'm fascinated by your take on it.
Let me say this about Wall Street. If I could fuck my wife half as good as Wall Street has fucked our economy, I wouldn't have to go through her emails.
Critics love stand-up John Mulaney.
He's the funniest comedian alive.
Now he's coming to Fox Sunday Funday with the series premiere of
Mulaney.
He made me a stand-up.
I was once getting a massage, and the masseuse told me to undress to my comfort level. So I put on a sweater and a pair of corduroy pants.
But his life is just a joke.
I think I could be the next Johnny Carson, but also do movies.
You'll be lucky if you're Carson Daly and you go to the movie.
Mulaney premieres Sunday after an outrageous all-new Family Guy on Fox.
Geico presents Fan Mail to a Pig.
Dear Maxwell, first off, I really enjoy your commercials about Geico's app. I watch them over and over and over. They make me both laugh and very hungry. Weird. Anyway, I just want to let you know how Geico's new claim status updates on the app really blow me away. Getting those updates makes me think of you. I'd like to thank you in person. Just send me your address. All the best, Big Bad W. Sure thing, Big Bad W. I got a pen. It's 802 Not Gonna Happen Lane.
Claim status updates just a tap away on the Geico app.
Jimmy Dore back on the More Stories podcast. Hey, October 3rd, I'm going to be at the Irvine Improv. Buy tickets at jmoore.com. Or don't. What do I care? But especially if you live in Virginia, Maryland, or Ohio, I really want you to come to the Irvine Improv in Irvine, California, October 3rd. Jimmy Dore, the book, Your Country is Just Not That Into You. You're very passionate about your civics.
Thank you.
You're very passionate about the government, and I think that's lacking. I think a lot of people, the Generation X, Generation Y, and the Generation whatever the one, I don't know what the fuck they're
I don't know what they call them
now. They'll come up with some stupid name in your liberal media.
Generation D for douche.
Douche. Generation mullet. People need to be at least aware of the things that you're talking about. And look, we love our country, obviously. And one of my favorite stories that I don't know if you know this or not, when King George was getting his portrait taken after he had lost the Revolutionary War, he asked his portrait taker, what do you think General Washington, meaning George Washington, will do now? Do you know this?
No.
And the portrait taker said, I think he's going to go back to Virginia and farm. And King George got up off his stool, his chair rather, and said, that would make him the most powerful man in the world. To just fucking...
walk away?
Just to farm. And it seems like we started as counterpunchers. Our first flag was don't tread on me. Like, just leave us the fuck alone. We just want to farm. We got these colonies, buzz off. And now it seems like we're just lunging across the ring, just throwing haymaker after haymaker, just chasing any bum of the month club fighter down. When is it possible, Jimmy Dore, who wrote this great book about our country and about our government, is it possible for there ever to be a system in place where we just kind of put up not a fence like a fucking border fence, but just put up a fence and sort of, can we afford to be isolationists? Do we have to be the worldwide leader and everything?
Well, I think I would just turn that question on its head. Can we afford to keep being interventionists? This whole problem with...
Yes. It makes the fat cats rich. You just explained to me they own everything, so the answer to that is very easy. Yes.
And so when
we need to.
Let me go back to that point about taxing millionaires and billionaires. And, you hear from the government and the news media that we're broke. So this is a real statistic. In 1980, the upper 5% of Americans had a net worth of around $9 trillion, which is a lot. Now they have a net worth of $45 trillion, the upper 5%. Since 1980, they've accumulated more wealth than the entire human race had created prior to 1980.
Jesus Christ.
So when people say we're broke, That's bullshit. When they've got money, they just don't want to give it to you. They give it to Wall Street. You know, FDR had a jobs program where he hired people to go make parks, build roads.
See, you just sound like a Democrat.
Do shit.
You just sound like a left guy.
He put money in the guy's pockets.
All your good examples are Democrats.
What our Democrat president's doing now is not.
Well, that's because you don't like blacks.
And Bill Clinton, what they're doing is called quantitative easing. Quantitative easing.
Cool, hold on. Nobody listening knows what the fuck.
I'm going to explain it.
Okay. Quantitative easing.
You've heard that term. What does that mean,
No, we
Jimmy?
haven't, Jimmy.
Okay, quantitative easing.
We're human beings.
Instead of injecting money into our economy through workers by hiring people to do stuff and jolting our economy that way, what they've decided to do is take $50 billion a month and give it right to Wall Street for free. And that's supposed to boost our economy. That's happened last month. It happened the month before. It happened a month before that. It happened this month.
Who gives
it's gonna
money?
The Federal Reserve prints $50 billion, gives it to Wall. They buy their toxic assets.
What does Wall Street do with that $50 billion? They just keep
They certainly don't invest it.
They don't?
They don't invest it in things. They don't invest it in like manufacturing, or they use it to show up their bottom line. Whatever banks
Wall Street isn't like a company with a building with a safe. It's a whole amorphous giant sort of thing.
So what Wall Street's using, right? So they have all these
global.
Toxic assets on their bank, on their books right now, right? So remember the housing bubble, right? They repealed all the rules, so housing prices got inflated. They pocketed all the money. When the economy crashed, the government bailed them out, meaning you and me. So they didn't lose money, right? So they got.
So when we hear about the United States, because this is what scares me, you know, I got kids, and you watch the news, and it says we're trillions of dollars in debt, and you think to yourself, wow, Barack Obama's accumulated more debt than the last 50 presidents combined. Let's say it's not. Let's just say that the debt is trillions and trillions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, we do have trillions of dollars in debt.
So I don't know how, because when I was in high school, the debt was in the billions, and it scared the shit out of us in high school. Now it's in the trillions, and nothing in my life has changed at all. Nothing. Nothing has changed.
That is correct.
Is it just going to go into the quadrillions and the octillions, and everything will still stay the same? At what point does the system collapse on itself because the debt has become completely unsustainable, even at the level of corporate bullshit and obfuscation that we're operating under?
Well, is the debt going to keep growing?
I'm a fucking dumb guy? Look at that.
Is the debt going to keep growing? Yes, it is. How important is the debt? I'm not an economist, but I did hear a philosopher one time say this. He said that, you know, what screws up human beings is that we mistake symbols of things for things. For instance, we think money is wealth. Money is a symbol of wealth. So when the Depression happened, we don't have any money in our banks. Well, go print some more. We still have all the same resources in America. We're still just as rich as we always were. That's like if you showed up at a construction site and they go, hey, we can't build today because we're out of rulers. What do you mean? Well, we don't have inches. We're out of them. What? So that's the same thing with money and debt. That's the way I look at it. It's all pretend. It's all made up. What does a banker use when he buys gold? What does a banker use when he buys gold?
I don't know.
Credit.
Okay. But
we invented a thing called credit.
But is the debt made up?
The debt is...
Does the United States really owe trillions of dollars? Are we really putting out that much more than we're taking in? Because we have steel, we have wheat, we have grain, we have fabulous weapons.
I mean,
we
are
ship
running
all over the world. So how can we possibly, as a company, it seems impossible to run at a deficit.
So that's what I'm talking about.
States,
so if
me and you are the United States,
yes,
we're going into business together,
right?
All right. You're West Coast, I'm East Coast. We're going to join our forces. We're going to sell fruits, vegetables, wheat. Nobody has fucking wheat for some reason. For about 40 years, nobody has wheat. We give everybody their wheat.
Okay.
All right. Steel, cars.
Right. Yes.
We're going to sell fucking oil out of Texas and California. We got this globe on lock. How the fuck in 200 years are you and me trillions of dollars in debt?
Because the people who own the economic system rig it so that they can put the money in their pocket while screwing our country, which is us, the taxpayer. So money has been filtering upward. Remember the supply side economics that got started in the 80s? It was called trickle down. If you give more money to people who are already rich, they'll spend more money.
They'll tip more.
Yeah, that's basically what they're thinking. Well, since the 1980, they've accumulated $45 trillion, and wages have stayed flat.
Okay. Let's take it a little slower.
What happens is...
Hold on, no. So you and I you're United States. We form the United States.
Yes, okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
We sell oil. We sell cars. We sell grain. We sell strawberries, fruits, vegetables. We sell tourism. People come here just to spend money in fucking gift shops in, whatever, in Newport Beach.
Mm-hmm.
How does our company run at a deficit?
Because
we sell missiles
to
everyone.
Because they're extracting wealth instead of...
Who's they? That's where you got to.
So the they is the owner class. What George Carlin refers to as the owner class. So you're making the mistake of thinking the country sells those things. The country got sold to private industries, and they're the ones who are selling those things.
Give me
for instance, in your analogy,
of private industries that you're talking about.
So oil, that's a natural resource.
Oil
that comes
is not
out
a company.
That comes out of the ground, but there's Exxon.
Okay.
So there's that.
Okay.
So that would be a private company, military-industrial complex. These are the people.
So you're telling me the United States Army is owned by?
Yes.
It's privatized.
Yes. It's very, very, very privatized.
And I think that is the sentence that will scare the shit out of most people listening to this.
They have no idea how much money. We're spending billions of dollars to private... Well, first of all, Edward Snowden was working for a private company who had access to all the data. So we're privatizing everything. Not only our education, we're corporatizing education, but we're corporatizing our military. It's done. It already happened. So I remember when I was in Afghanistan, you notice all the people who serve you food and stuff, they're not in the military. There's no more mess hall. I mean, you don't have mess duty or whatever.
Only in Applebee's.
Okay, right. So it's all people who live there. It's all corporations making money. So I don't. Let me just get back really quickly.
Go on.
I just can't get over the fact.
So to answer my question real quick.
Yes.
We're running at a deficit because it's the illusion that the United States is actually selling these things and putting it back into the United States banks. Me and you run the company.
No, we own the bill. So what?
Me and you.
Yeah.
I got to stick with this tablet that I've created for it to.
But it's an inaccurate analogy because
it's not in my head because I made it up. So how could it be inaccurate if I created it? You and I sell these things to people all over the globe.
Right.
And when we get the money back, instead of putting it in our pockets,
instead of putting it back in our pockets
into our business,
right.
We just put it in like these nebulous other places that people that around us don't know have invested in our business.
Yes.
Thank you.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
It doesn't make sense, you creep.
So the money
doesn't make sense.
And so
actually,
why is
JJ, that's exactly correct.
And so Jimmy, why is that
I'll take
bad?
Things only I know, Alec.
Why is that bad when money is concentrated in fewer people's hands? Well, because that hurts the economy. Because rich people, you still, Jay, when you were making, say, $1 million a year or $2 million a year, whatever it was, you still are only going to buy 1 or 2 or 3 cars a year. You're not going to buy 40. You're not Jerry Seinfeld. You're not going to buy 5, 6, or 7 houses. You're going to have 1 or 2 houses. So that's the problem. So if you take $200 million and give it to one guy instead of taking $200 million and giving it to 5,000 people, they're going to put all that money back in the economy. That's why unemployment benefits are such a jolt to the economy, because those people spend that money. And our economy is based on consumers buying shit. So that's how you jolt the economy. FDR knew that. Barack Obama doesn't. He's doing the opposite.
If the economy is based on consumers buying things, then the answer to my question, when will the deficit eventually cave in on the country, is never.
I don't know about that, but I do know that the banks, if we stay...
As long as Apple rolls some new shit out, we're still going to be okay, because we're still going to keep taking the money out of our pockets and feeding the fat cats that some of it is coming back our way, and that's what props us up. Otherwise, we would have been gone in like 1988.
Well, let's remember what the Gilded Age was. Mark Twain said the Gilded Age was a society where everything was sick underneath, but there was a glitter of gold on the top that made everything look okay, which is what we're living in right now.
Yeah.
Worse than that. Right? So that's the effects of the economic policy that the country, Democrats and Republicans, have both deregulate Wall Street, supply-side economics, give tax cuts to the wealthy, put the burden back on working men and old people, the people who can least afford it. That's who it's like, it's unbelievable. If you read the book, I have that chapter in there where the CEO of Honeywell and the CEO of Lloyd Blankline from Goldman Sachs, they talk about the problem with the economy and Social Security and Medicare. I mean, it's fucking hilarious.
You love Greenspan. You really write him a love letter.
That guy. And why do people keep asking his opinion? That's the thing I don't get. It's like you're never disqualified from public life anymore. You can be wrong about all those people we just saw, all those people who were wrong about the Iraq War the first time. They bring them back again, and they all saying we got to go back in. So you never get discredited if what you're saying is pro-corporate, pro-military industrial complex, pro-invasion of other country for oil. You'll never be off TV. But if you say the opposite, you haven't seen Phil Donahue since, have you?
I don't think Phil Donahue's ever been spoken about this much, even in. I don't think Marlo Thomas has ever said his name this much.
Because they don't want you to hear from him. That's the last thing they want you to hear from. They want you to hear from Brian Williams and David Gregory and guys who will question real patriots. Like, Edward Snowden I talk about in the book. If you listen to the mainstream news media,
he's a spy.
You would think that Edward Snowden is this anti-American creep with a narcissistic personality disorder. Yeah, he's got a narcissistic personality disorder. He's being called a narcissist by guys who wear makeup for a living and sit in front of fucking cameras. That's how screwed up things are. That's us. We're narcissists. This guy had a sweet job in Hawaii, a pretty girlfriend. He didn't have to do that, and he didn't sell those secrets to foreign countries or spies. He gave it to journalists, like you're supposed to do. And that's exactly what he did. And what he did is what a patriot does. He risked everything. He didn't sell that shit.
You're either going to double your stand-up ticket sales or get shot. There's no middle ground here. What is the fastest way, in a palatable, describe it to me like I'm dumb, because I am.
Okay.
I'm
dumb too, by the way.
What? It doesn't sound it, brother, and didn't read that way. What is the fastest, easiest remedy to making the deficit go away?
Well, I'm going to say I think we're focused on the deficit. I don't see that as a big problem.
No, I'm not focused on it. It's just something I've always wondered. I suggested.
Well, here's two things you can do.
What if we just didn't tell anybody there was no defense spending for one calendar year?
Well, how about
who would notice?
Who would notice? I guess all the people who run stuff, the military-industrial complex. Right. People at Raytheon would notice. People at Lockheed Martin would notice.
Sit tight.
People at Halliburton would notice.
You got to take a year off.
But people don't realize how much we spend. We spend like 12 or 13 times more than the next country does. We spend more money on defense than the next state combined. So, and we don't have that enemy anymore. So this is, again, and people don't stop to question that when they're being told that their teachers are making too much money. That's what I love. We come down on teachers and immigrants. Teachers. Oh, yeah, those fucking... Why else would you become a teacher unless you're greedy? You remember the thing that happened in Wisconsin and people got angry at teachers?
Well, I get mad at teachers because they get tenure after 5 years and you can't get rid of them.
Okay.
That's kind of ballsy to me. I'm not kidding, by the way.
All tenure means is that you have to...
It means you can't get fired.
That's not what that means.
It does in this garage.
That's not what it means.
I hear a lot of you, and I read a lot of you pointing out how absolutely ridiculous both sides of the aisle are. I'm not hearing any solutions, Jimmy Dore.
Oh, here's the solution.
There you go.
Well, I don't know if you noticed. First of all, the solution
Yorkie is snoring.
There's a group called Wolf Pack.
My dog hates your book.
I don't think your dog's very literate.
You son of a bitch.
Your dog's fucking bought and paid for by the military-industrial complex. We know that.
Eisenhower warned you.
That's right. He wasn't kidding, by the way. So
the listeners should know that, by the way.
That Eisenhower warned us.
Dwight D. Eisenhower.
He said we must resist the undue influence of the military-industrial complex. That was the president. That was a general.
On his way out.
On his way out. Of course, on his way out.
And also, he said, God help the man without my military experience that sits in this chair.
Mm-hmm. Well, there you go.
And the next guy up was Jack Kennedy.
There you go. God help him.
Fucking whacked him.
Yeah. We got
actually whacked because he wanted to stop the goddamn...
That's what they say. But here's the solution.
How about I'm afraid to say it out loud? I don't want to get whacked.
I don't want to get whacked.
Government's listening to this.
You're a riddle wrapped in an enigma.
By the way, NSA, I think you're fucking terrific.
They're doing great work.
You can pat me down whenever you want. I don't care.
That's great, right? So the government says the terrorists...
I don't go there. We're good. The government... We just said they're great. Come on. How do we fix it, Jimmy?
The government...
I'm not kidding.
So here's how we fix it. Wolfpack. There's a group called Wolfpack.
That's all right. That's when I was in fucking Cub Scouts. We had a wolf pack. What are you talking about? That's not going to fix anything.
I'm going to tell you.
What are we going to get badges?
It's a wolf pack, and it's called wolf-pack.com. And what they do is they're committed to getting a constitutional amendment to get money out of politics. That's how you fix this. You got to get the money out of politics, and you can't fix any other thing until you get money out of politics. Why are we still pretend debating climate change? Because of money's in politics buying those. Why did 90% of the people want gun legislation after Sandy Hook, and we didn't get it? 90% of the people, that's because they respond to their donors. They don't respond to their voters. Right, so we got to get the money out, and Wolfpack is committed to passing this amendment.
Like a wolf.
Yeah, WOLF-PAC.com, wolfpack-.com,
okay.
wolf-pack.com. Right, so
you nutty liberals out there want to follow Jimmy Dore down this fucking rabbit hole he's taking us down.
So what they did, they started in New Hampshire. So what you have to do,
the Wolfpack.
You have to get...
Not North Carolina State, the Wolfpack.
Right.
Not New Mexico.
No, you have to get, I think, 35 states to approve, to call for a constitutional amendment, and you have to get 2/3 of the Senate and the House. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Sounds undoable.
I'm 30 seconds new to this Wolfpack idea. That's impossible. What you're explaining to me is impossible.
So they started in New Hampshire. And they were like, you're never going to do this. They had 2 votes in the Senate in New Hampshire. So they talked to him. They went and they lobbied. They got a preacher to talk to a senator. Long story short, they passed it. They passed that fucking thing in New Hampshire. People go, okay, well, you got a small state. You can get a small state, but you'll never get a big state with a lot of military contractors and oil like California. You'll never get California. They just passed it. California just passed it. So they're calling the Senate just passed yesterday a proposition to open debate on a constitutional amendment to get money out of politics.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yes.
And that's to you, Jimmy Dore, whose book is Your Country is Just Not That Into You. That is the biggest, that will be the panacea that'll fix this country the fastest, as much as it could be fixed with one stroke of a pen.
That is the root of all the problems right now in our body politic.
The money running the suits.
Of course.
Quickly, Occupy Wall Street. Are these people batshit crazy, or did we watch something that was beautiful and a revolution, or both?
No, I don't know how you feel about Occupy Wall Street,
I thought it was
Jay.
cool.
But is there anything more disgusting than a bunch of filthy degenerates making a perfectly valid point? Because that's what was happening. Those people had it, and they did what you're supposed to do in America. You're supposed
it was cool. I was
take to the streets peacefully.
I was in a hotel in New York City, and it was only a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And I remember I was texting Kelly Carlin back and forth, and she was telling me what Twitter feeds I could watch live, like actual police helmets. Like I could use their footage, and I could watch like a policeman's footage from his helmet, or like street cams. And I was watching like these clashes in real time. It was pretty fascinating.
It's pretty heavy duty.
I like the idea of very poor people that are sick of losing jobs and getting stuck up by the man, camping out on the man's lawn. But did anything really change other than we had this neat little revolution and now everything's exactly the way it was? Why didn't they stay there, Jimmy Dore?
Well, what happened was you saw the power of Wall Street. What happened was...
No porta potties.
No, Wall Street instructed Democratic mayors from coast to coast to get their union cops to go out there and crack the heads of peaceful protesters instead of protecting their constitutional rights for redress of their government. So that's what happened, and that's what's going to keep happening. And, you know, as soon as you say something that upsets the apple cart, they'll send the cops out there to crack your heads in, and they'll do it gladly.
You and I are both pro-cops. I know that. You're a Chicago guy. It's impossible.
My dad was a cop. My grandpa was a cop. My brother's a cop. But to say I'm pro-cop would be a mistake.
I'm trying to save your life, Jim.
I have my best friends are cops, but I like to tell people this about people forget cops, like comedians. We're not doing this to help other people. Everybody takes a job because they like it. People become cops because they fucking like being cops. I know a million cops, Jay. I like them. We hang out. I've stood up to a best man at cops' weddings. Not one of the cops I know ever became a cop because they wanted to help their community. They became cops because they dig it, which we need those guys. But we just need to remember that when we're dealing with them. These guys love that shit, which is why you need to keep them on a short leash.
Okay. Make believe I'm a devil's advocate time again.
Okay.
Because you said you liked it.
Yeah.
And this is, I understand the protester has a right to protest. That's what makes this country fantastic. I'm a policeman. I make $38,000 a year. I work in fucking Burbank, right? My desk sergeant says, you got to go down there because this sidewalk is public, that grass is private.
Right.
You got to make sure that people don't go on the grass. I tell people don't go on the grass. They tell me to go fuck myself. This goes on for about 3 days. Now there's 5. I'm being serious. Now there's 5 times the amount of people. I'm a guy doing it. I was told to tell people you can stand here, just don't stand there. Now there's 5 times the amount of people. They're standing where I told them not to stand because they want to provoke me. And now I'm not asking. Now I'm telling them, get off the goddamn grass. Now they're spitting in my face, and some shit's gonna break out.
Well, what I said to my dad when
hold on, does that not harbor any sympathy towards the policeman's job in this scenario?
Oh, I understand that.
It's not like cops.
They're pinched.
Cops didn't show up at Occupy Wall Street swinging fucking billy clubs. They showed up going, all right, and they're waiting around. We both know a lot of cops. No cop just. Look, some cops do. We know that. It's been in the news, obviously.
Anthony Bologna, who was the captain, was macing fucking women. We saw it happen for no reason. He was macing women, and he got a couple of vacation days taken away.
God bless him.
And he was the captain, and he did it in front of cameras, and they don't give a shit.
But some do. And what I'm saying to you is you.
So, but what we're
because you're blanketing, like cops go down there and they fucking crack people's skulls open. But a cop who's look, we both know a lot of cops.
I know a lot of cops.
Your job is go tell those people you have the right to peaceful assembly here.
Right.
You do not have the right to do it here because this building is a private.
But they did it all over. They did it in Oakland. They did it in L.A. They did it in New York, Chicago.
Just do what I'm giving you. So.
If I was a cop,
what is that cop? You're the cop.
Would you
Go
arrest?
Tell those people to get the fuck off that grass. That's private property. They have the right to peacefully assemble from that pole to that pole. That over there is owned by Jimmy Dore, and Jimmy Dore can't have people on his fucking lawn. It's a private property.
Right.
So what do you do?
Would you arrest Rosa Parks for breaking the law?
It wasn't a law that black people couldn't sit. Oh, well, then I'm ignorant to that. But I'm kind of taking offense that you're making a civil rights thing, a black woman in the front of the bus, to a very specific cop at Occupy Wall Street scenario. It's kind of like it seems like a deflection.
What I'm saying is that, cops have to make moral decisions. And, it's just like Oliver North. Oliver North told us that if someone gives you an illegal order, hey, I think cops are there. Their duty is also to protect your right to peacefully protest.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that in Occupy Wall Street. They cracked heads all across. So I don't know, this situation you're bringing up, it sounds interesting, but I want to talk about what really happened. And what really happened was people were peacefully protesting because we were getting screwed.
I think what I'm presenting really happened a lot more than what you're presenting.
Oh, okay.
I think cops were told, go down there, just make sure they don't go past.
No, they were told to go down there and arrest people. They were told to go down there and arrest people. They arrested 700 people on a fucking bridge in New York City one day. Do you remember that?
If you walk on
700 people, were they all on the wrong grass?
If you walk on a bridge,
yes.
You're going to get put in a squad car, Jimmy. You can't walk across a fucking bridge.
I hear what you're saying. I would like to think.
I'm the Law and Order candidate.
I'm not.
On podcasting.
I'm not the Law and Order guy. There was a Philadelphia.
Do you really think cops showed up to the scene to crack fucking skulls?
Cops make the mistake of thinking they're not the protesters because they're going to come for your pension next. They're going to come for your fucking pay next. And they tried to take my dad's pension when he retired. He was a cop. They tried to take away his medical benefits, tried to take away his So the same motherfuckers who are ordering you to go crack the heads of those peaceful protesters, they're going to also try to screw you.
Order. That's crazy left-wing bullshit.
So it just happened coast to coast for no reason?
It happened because
Democratic mayors ordered fucking cops to do that.
It happened because the number of people that are not doing what you were told to ask them to do is doubling, tripling, quadrupling, and they're getting more and more belligerent. And every man has a breaking, and yes, I'm speaking in generalities.
Yes,
every man has a point where he goes, "Fuck this shit."
We're going to disagree on this.
Well, that's fine
because what the breaking point was when the citizen said, "Fuck this shit" from Wall Street, and I'm going to go out and protest. I'm going to exercise my constitutional right and protest.
Yes,
that's what the breaking point was. And the cop
that's not true.
Makes the mistake of thinking that he's not that guy, that he identifies himself with the ruling class.
So. Conceptual.
They weren't cracking their heads because they were on the wrong grass. They were cracking their heads because the powers didn't want them there anymore.
They didn't want them where they weren't supposed to be.
They're not anywhere.
You think they want homeless people littering the fucking
They're
bullshit?
not anywhere.
Hold on. Do you think they want homeless people up and down Figueroa Boulevard in Los Angeles?
So
isn't that a poor look? Don't you think the mayor of LA would say?
So why doesn't he go arrest them?
I'm saying the same thing to you.
That's our policy for the homeless, by the way. We'll arrest you. We'll put you in a jail cell, but we won't have a policy to deal with them, right? That's an expensive way to take care of.
Apart on this cop.
You
really think cops were told to go down there and crack heads?
Well,
Adam 12.
They were told to go disperse to get rid of the crowd. Like I was down there that night the cops came out, and we were on City Hall.
Okay, time out.
So they came out.
The live feed I was watching was Washington Square Park in Greenwich Village.
Oh, okay.
There's a fucking curfew in Washington Square Park.
Mm-hmm.
Get the fuck out of the park. There are signs everywhere
that
say this park closes at 11 p.m. or whatever it is.
The whole point of protesting
that's fine.
Is that you cause discomfort.
Okay.
So civil disobedience.
My job as a police officer is to say to you, if you don't believe me, the sign right there says get out of the park by 1 a.m. It's 3 a.m. We've been having the same argument for 2 hours. I got a wife at home. Give me an Airbnb.
I get you. So you're saying
kids.
Arrest Rosa Parks.
That's
what you're saying.
You sound like
there's a larger issue than a fucking curfew in a fucking park, Jay. You're
like
fucking upset over a technicality when we're getting fucking ass raped by fucking military industrial complex and Wall Street. That's what you're upset about? You're upset about some fucking technicality?
No, I'm not upset at all. I'm asking you a question.
So that's what...
Holy shit, you got a fucking fuse. Relax.
So people say to me, they go, wow, you really get worked up about this stuff. And I say, I apologize. I usually save my anger for important things like sporting events and Hollywood award shows.
Yeah, of course. And you thank God when you win. And that great stuff, Jeff Stilson joke, we would have won, but Jesus
made me fumble.
He hates our team.
Yeah, yes.
But
so
what does? And
I think we're getting caught up though in this thing about.
I'm not getting caught up. I think I have a very rational question.
So
if you're asking,
it's always
people,
been that way. Cops have always done that. They've always.
If the sign says leave, and I'm not trying to rile you. I obviously hit a fucking button here.
Well, you're upset over a technicality.
I'm not. You're the one yelling. I'm not. I really want. I'm not
I am
upset.
yelling.
I'm not upset at all. I really want to know what is a cop supposed to do if the sign says get out by 11.
There was a Philadelphia cop.
Hold on. And it's now 3:00 in the morning. At what point does that cop put his hands on your body and pull you out of that park? So, I'm really asking.
Again, I would say as a cop, you have to decide, do I want to be a part of this? Do I think this is better for society to go arrest these people or let these people protest against a rigged system that is crushing the middle class right now?
Right. And we both agree but that cop's going to get fired.
I know. That's what I'm saying. He's put in a position, right?
So you do have sympathy for that's
I certainly have
weeded out a little sympathy for the cop.
I do have sympathy for the position that the policeman is put in. There was a Philadelphia.
I can't wait to read these fucking tweets.
There was a Philadelphia cop who put on his uniform. He might have even been a captain. And it was. I read a story about him, and he went and sat down and protested for Occupy Wall Street. They took his pension away for doing that, and he said because he said no. He said, I recognize that I'm them, that their struggle is my struggle, and I'm not a part of the ruling class that is opposing them. I am them. And so I was like, wow, that gave me real hope.
That's a ballsy dude.
That's a ballsy dude.
Why did they take away your dad's pension?
Well, they tried to cut their pensions. I remember I was young.
Everybody's pensions.
Yeah, they tried to fuck over. They tried to
and that's happening today.
Rein in their pensions. They tried to cut their medical. That was a big thing my dad was worried about, was they were trying to cut their medical. The union had to go fight in court and all this shit. So just like what they're doing in Detroit, how they're screwing over the people who work their whole lives for the city. Right. And instead of cutting the money that goes to the bank that screwed them over, by the way, again, banks came in, extracted wealth. That's what's happening. People aren't investing in the country. They're extracting wealth all over the place. Banks aren't they're extracting wealth. Anyway, so I don't even know what I was saying, but I'll
help you.
Okay.
If I'm a high school graduate only. So using that brain.
Okay.
And we're both comics, so we both think pretty well. We're both
logically.
We're both C students that do stand-up comedy,
yes.
and we read rooms for a living.
Yes.
You run a city. You have municipal jobs like policemen, firemen, EMT, and stuff like that. And one of the great benefits of having a city job is you get a pension. We agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was part of the deal.
And in Detroit, and the automakers that you brought up, and I'm piggybacking what you said, when you retire, you get that pension. They take a little out, and then when you retire, if you live long enough, you will essentially be paid twice for having one job over the course of your lifetime. Now, you and I both know, like General Motors, I'll use that just as an example, there are millions more former General Motors employees than there are actual employees. So at some point, you're paying hundreds of thousands of people this pension that no longer work for your company. It's a terrible business model. Somebody has to get fucked for this. How do you fix that? I'm really asking.
First of all, it's a myth that working people are living longer. They're not. White-collar people are living longer.
So you said if you retire at 60.
Say if you retire at 60
and you live
to what?
Let's say, all right, fuck it. Let's say you live 20 more years. You're getting paid 20 years while you're not working.
Retire.
That doesn't happen if you're a fucking ball player or if you're a comic or you're.
Yeah, I don't have. I have no retirement.
And retire, you're done laying bricks.
Well, you do get Social Security. I mean, I don't know what you get, a 401k probably. I don't know how people are planning for the retirement who are blue collar nowadays. But turns out most of them aren't.
Specifically, like
but pensions are a good thing. And you're kind of, that was when workers used to be able to retire comfortably, but now they're balancing so you're saying that what's screwing
up? I'm not really saying. Right. I'm really searching with you.
Right. I would say that
because Chris Christie in New Jersey is just taking a sword.
Again, he's fucking over the pensions.
Yes, but the pensions are
Yeah, but do you know that he cut the corporate tax? Do you know he's cutting taxes of the wealthiest people? Just like I said, the upper 5% have.
Okay, we found the solution.
Yes.
So again, what we started talking.
Right.
And we're all in unity in this.
Right.
We have to start taxing the shit out of the corporations.
Well, that's shit. Just make them pay something.
I was going to fucking agree with you about something, you prick.